All right, construction champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum, and we're here for another amazing episode of Construction Champions Podcast, where we're ripping down the walls, we're burning down the house, any way you want to say it, on what the standard is in the construction industry, and we're opening up the doors and having the conversations that matter. I'm super excited to have Terry here with us today. Terry, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you a lot, Ron. I appreciate the opportunity to chat today and have a meaningful conversation about construction. So thank you for the opportunity.
We're absolutely going to do that, man. Terry, you're the premier safety expert out of California. 25 years in the industry. You're the OSHA expert, plus all the other acronyms when we start talking about safety that come up. You're a legend in this space. But what I want to know is, what are you excited about right now?
I think right now for me personally is, some of the projects and clients that I'm working for that are very, we'll say they're kind of like high profile clients, and some of the projects that I'm helping with are environmental cleanup projects. I write a lot of safety plans for my clients, and the projects that they do are a little bit, different than residential construction, but the cleanup of some of these hazardous waste sites and things like that, but a lot of them are right up against the new residential projects and things like that. So there's a lot of eyes from the regulatory agencies around these types of projects. And so the harder they are, the more excited I get about them, because I've worked on a lot of cleanup sites that had petroleum hydrocarbons and, a lot of things that were left over from the gas industry. And I've also worked around project sites that had plating operations, like former aerospace plants and things like that. And they did a lot of chrome plating, and a lot of those processes contaminated the soil. And so we kind of like go into these projects and do the cleanups of the soil. And it's kind of like removing cancer. That's kind of how I look at it. Sometimes you have to excavate it out, and it gets pretty complex, but it's a lot of fun. And the one project I'm working on right now that's really exciting is one that was a former NASA site. And this one's going to be the cleanup will probably go about 4 or 5, 6 years. There's radiation there and a lot of other stuff. So I kind of get into that side of it. But I help all different types of clients with their needs, grading contractors and residential contractors, plumbers, you name it. Anybody that wants to improve their safety program, those are my targets, I guess you could say.
I love it. I'm super excited to be talking about safety today, something that's typically not sexy, but there's not a lot of sexy stuff within the construction industry. But this is one people generally don't want to talk about, but I think we're going to light it on fire today, and we're going to have a great conversation. So I'm going to get started right here with the $1 million question, which is, what makes a construction champion?
I think that there's a lot of different things. It depends how you really look at it, but I look at expertise and skill as one of those things. It's pretty important, I think, to make sure that in your arena that you have that area of expertise. And when you're building your brand or building your company, you're bringing in like-minded people that have the knowledge to help you grow the company and be successful. I call it putting the right person in the right seat. And sometimes we hire people out of convenience because we want to grow our business, and we might have a contract we want to fulfill. So we're trying to plug the holes. But if you don't have the right person in the right seat, it can really start to unravel some of the things that you've spent your time trying to build within your company. So I kind of look at that. I really like the expertise and the skill. I think that's way up at the top. And with that, I always like to see people that are enthusiastic or at least engaged with safety, because safety should be at the core of everything when you're doing your work out on the construction site. And sometimes people are lukewarm on it, and sometimes, people don't want to do it at all, So I understand. I've worked with hundreds of construction workers, and I've seen, what it's like when you have people that are very resistant towards it. And it takes a lot to kind of like change people's behavior and get them on board, but it's for the best interest of everybody. And it's interesting when you're working with people that are like that, because sometimes it kind of comes across as like, hey, it feels to me like I care more about your safety than you do. And it shouldn't really be like that. And I think once you can get everybody singing to the same tune, and safety being at the core of this, you also improve your quality, because a lot of the same reasons you have mishaps on job sites that hit the bottom line and are costly, which could be property damage, bodily injury, some kind of an environmental impact or a spill, or some kind of fine or regulatory exceedance. Those are the things that really chip away at the bottom line. And why people should care about that, workers and construction workers, and even maybe some of the smaller construction company owners, is because that's going to chip away at your reputation if you can't manage or maintain. I call it um, maintaining control, right? So the idea in safety, if you had to sum it up in one sentence, is to prevent loss of control. If you can prevent loss of control, you will eliminate bodily injuries, property damage, and all those things that really start to eat away at your profit. And so I think, it kind of all goes hand in hand, but you're asking what makes a construction champion. And I think it's, you have to have the expertise and the skill, quality and excellence. I believe this is what I preach is, if you're already going out to work every day, shoot for flawless execution. Do you want to be the person that, gives a half-hearted attempt at how you do your job or your task, and then at the end, you might end up with a decent house, let's say, if you're building a house. But I always want to try and do the best I can. And when I talk to people about safety, I say, look, I just don't want you to ever have to be in front of an OSHA inspector asking some of the questions that I've seen asked, or having to look a person's family in the face when they fell through a skylight and didn't make it home that day, things like that. By having these safeguards in place, it actually really helps your overall business. And you just have to get people to see it like that. And I think changing people's mindset that it's not bad to look out for each other. It's not a bad thing to actively care. And when you can show that to your employees, they really, respond well to it. So I think that's just really what helps make a construction champion. Care about what you do a good job, and shoot for flawless execution.
Absolutely. And you touched on some things in there that I want to dive in on, and that is, how do we get out of this reputation of this lackluster about safety? Because safety, I mean, it doesn't just impact the person, the bottom line, it impacts every aspect. And there's a lot of high risks on job sites. And
Yeah.
we're really, as an industry, we all lackluster about it. There's not much excitement, but I'm a firm believer that a rising tide will move all waters. So how do we start creating that mindset? How do we start getting guys on board? How do we make safety something that's not a bad word?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. And I really think it starts out on the job site. And the foreman and the superintendents need to be involved in doing daily tailgate meetings. And sometimes, you have people that have different skill sets and comfort levels. And if you ask somebody to go do a tailgate safety meeting with a crew of 10 people, if they've never done that before, that might be a tall order because the person may not have the confidence. And I've seen it over and over again, where you go out and these guys, like he's been a superintendent for 20 years, but if you ask him to do a tailgate meeting with the crew, talk about the scope of work and what some of the hazards are going to be and how they're going to mitigate the hazards. And you're talking a lot about communication too, right? So this is where it really starts on the job site. During the day, in the morning, you start that job off the right way and get people involved in talking about safety. And you can really make a big difference there. But you have to pick the right person to be able to lead those meetings. And then one of the things I've done for a lot of clients now is to kind of change their programs from to more like a paperless system so that everything's done on their phones. And they can do their tailgate meeting right on their phone. And they have all the topics, they're already kind of there. So what happens is sometimes when you're out there, you forget, well, what topic should we talk about? Well, now we've got it so automated. You could just go down the list and you talk about it. And then once you do your discussion, you can have everybody sign off right on your phone. They sign it and it timestamps and GPSs that they were there. And that actually protects an employer because if there's ever any kind of OSHA investigation or anything like that, you could show those documents and say, look, we are being proactive about safety. We have proof we do these meetings every day. And you start busting out all of these papers and documents, and OSHA likes that. And it doesn't mean you won't be cited if there's a serious or willful violation, but the impact of a fine is sometimes reduced because you have a robust safety program with documentation. So there's a lot of ways to like really protect yourself that are out there, and it's not very hard to do it. But having those discussions in the field is really like important, I think.
Yeah, I think I went down this road before of like, how do you try to get safety starting to work into not necessarily the culture, but the mindset. And it really came down to finding somebody that wanted to own that and then letting them own it. And that had a tremendous impact because people will listen to somebody that wants to own something and finding that right person within your organization. I think you touch on something that's very important to understand is that having these safety meetings weekly, daily, having a record of all of this is so critical and it's so overlooked. And it doesn't have to be anything extravagant, or at least from my perspective of what we've done in the past, it doesn't have to be. It just you have to commit to doing it. And then when OSHA or any of these places get involved, because they eventually will, for all the construction champions out there that are building your businesses and you haven't ran into this in residential construction, eventually you're going to deal with OSHA. Like that's just the bottom line. There's really no way around it, but you want to have all your ducks in a row. And having those weekly safety meetings or is it daily now, or it used to be weekly is what we stuck to. But I think that's something that's really overlooked. It's super important for your business.
Yeah, you're right about that. And a lot of the companies that I have worked with and that are my clients, they're already on board with doing daily meetings. And so the trick is now, because they're already at this level, and it's, the thing that's very surprising that I was going to talk to you or mention earlier was like the confidence level of people that are conducting these meetings. Some people aren't comfortable with that. But you'd be surprised, like if you have a group of, let's just say 10 workers and you have the foreman, some of the workers that people don't give an opportunity to that could be doing or leading some of these safety meetings because they're smart and they're well spoken and they don't mind doing it, but nobody's ever asked them. And so you have to be like as a foreman super, you have to be willing to say, who can I delegate this to? Everybody should kind of like take a turn. And you'd be surprised what comes out of these workers that sometimes never get the chance to even speak up. And some of them they're new to the industry, or we would call them short service workers. They're new, and those are the ones that are most vulnerable because they haven't been around the construction industry. So you need to handhold them a little bit more, but you'd be surprised how smart these guys are and some of the stuff they'll come up with in these meetings that will really matter or make a difference. So I say that's a really important thing to do. Work, know your team and then delegate. A lot of people don't do that.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. It's by getting everybody involved, giving everybody an opportunity to learn and be able to teach. It creates an environment where that's just how we do it. Like it's not nothing bad. And we're kind of disagree with us the fact that the newer guys on the safety aspect, I'm an old dog. I was an old dog out in the field, and I used to think I was probably one of the biggest safety hazards because I was comfortable a lot of times. And you've done it many times, and that's how most of the time I've seen people get hurt. Was in a situation where we were just comfortable, we were complacent, and then something happens because of that. Newer guys tend to have a little bit more fear and the old dogs on the job sites, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does make sense. And when I've had to do onboarding of workers that are maybe new to the industry, I always will say, look, we're here to look out for you, but you're a fresh set of eyes. And so if you see something that doesn't look right or look safe, it's okay to bring it up and say something because we realize that some of us older construction workers, we can get complacent too. And so it's really more about we're all looking out for each other. And when you kind of present it like that, I think they especially like right when you hire them, if you do a onboarding or orientation type meeting, that's a really positive message to put out there. So,
yeah, and then from day one, you're making safety something that's relevant. Like it's something you talk about. I think it just truly is something that it's kind of the Wild West. We try to get to it, we try to do it, but we just need to be committed. And I'm telling everybody out there from past experiences, like this is something you want to have dialed in. You want to make sure that everything's correct and just do it. I mean, it's 10 minutes out of a meeting to have some understanding on safety and have a discussion around it and do all of that. And a lot of the stuff's out there these days to help with this. This isn't just stuff that you have to write, and it gets you compliant. And as you grow and you do bigger jobs, that compliancy starts to come into play with the jobs and with being able to get some of these contracts and do the work. So this stuff really does matter as you grow your business to make sure you're growing a safety program within your business.
Yeah, that's it's very important to realize all the reasons to have a safety program. It's not only, you want to be able to keep people, working safe and, but it can actually open opportunities for you to get new contracts. It could, on the flip side, if your EMR experience modification rating for your insurance, which is like I always describe it, it's like kind of like your personal credit rating. Okay, so if your company's EMR rating goes over a 1, it could actually disqualify you from being able to bid on some of the big juicy projects that are out there. And that's where I really help a lot of my clients is if their EMR starts climbing because they have like a slug of incidents, it doesn't fall off right away. It takes years. So, and the things that really end up getting their EMR sometimes isn't the actual safety incidents, but sometimes it's, workers' comp claims that aren't legit, and they have to, somebody goes in and they say, look, I slipped and I hurt my back, and now that ends up going sideways, but the person actually hurt their back when they were at a job before, or they were doing something on the weekend. And what it does to the employer, it really decreases their competitive performance. And so when you have a lot of incidents and things like this that happen, it could put a company out of business. I've seen it happen. I just helped a company a couple of years ago, brand new. They're already out of business. But they made a couple of fatal errors in their way they were doing their operations. And it's sad because the guy is really sharp and he had all the right things going on, and he was getting these big projects, grading projects and stuff. And so it was exciting to see see how good he was doing. And you like that. I like seeing people do well. And if they make some fatal mistakes, whether it's estimating or it's incidents or something else, that might be enough to just put them out of business altogether. So really, that's what all this is about. It's about having open dialogue and discussions about some of these things that could flare up on us and hurt our businesses, right? So that's why I think it's important really to have these kinds of podcasts, get the information out and talk about it. So you get different experts and find out, it might open up somebody's mind about something they never even thought about before, but it's really protecting your business, right? So, yeah.
It absolutely is protecting your business. I mean, workman's comp is out of control. Liability insurance, it's all out of control. And it's the reason it is because there's so many incidents, there's claims. Like the way to protect yourself is to not just have the insurance, but not have to utilize it, to create an environment where people do the right thing. You're always going to have accidents. There's always going to be stuff that happens. But minimizing that down and creating a record of exactly what you've trained on, what's happening out there, how you do everything is going to not just protect you and your business, it's also going to protect your employees in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. And if there's one takeaway I think people should hear today that could really help is, and I'll be honest, I was not open to this idea when I was really first introduced into safety by, I had to go through this process because I had a contract with the oil companies. And so they pushed me to do this hardcore safety training through this system that they had. And I didn't really want to do it, but it was kind of like forced on me. I felt like I had the shotgun barrels pointed at me. And it was like, okay, if you want this $20 million contract, then you're going to have to go down this road. And there was only a small group of us. So one of the people that had to do this was me. And so they were encouraging us to start reporting near miss incidents. And they had an expectation, like for so many man hours worked, they wanted 2 or 3 near misses reported or something like that. They had some metrics, we'll say. And so a lot of us, when we were kind of forced to do that, at first we didn't realize the importance of it. But now I could tell you years later that if you learn to report a near miss, so let's say a guy jumps off the back of the truck and he does it all the time. He jumps out of the back of the pickup truck and everything's fine. He never falls, right? But the one time he falls, he may or may not get hurt. But the behavior was there already because he's done that many times before. It just he never got hurt, right? So let's say you report it as a near miss, and however you report it doesn't matter. You make it to where you can capture that event And usually there's some known statistics that I'll share. One of them is that for every incident that happens, there's usually 8 near misses that led up to it. So that means there was 8 opportunities to prevent that from being an incident. And when you look at it like that, you really realize the value of, if you can capture the near misses out on the job, you can talk about them, then you can hopefully put a solution in place so that you don't end up with an incident. And it sounds like a lot of work, but if it's set up right, it's not a lot of work. It's super easy. And then you're able to like kind of get ahead of the stuff. Instead of waiting for something to happen, you're more proactive. Like one of the things, I just captured a near miss for a client. I was doing a site inspection. They had me out at this sanitation district project that they had. And they have a heavy component of trucking there. They're removing a lot of soil, overburden, and they're building a road. And so, we captured a near miss where this truck driver got stuck. He got his truck stuck. And when in the process of getting the truck stuck, the secondary air tank for the brakes that's underneath the truck, it has a pressure relief valve that snapped off. So when he later went to go try and dump the load of soil, he couldn't raise the bed, and there was some kind of problem. And it was a different part of the site where he got stuck. But he ends up climbing under the truck with a full load of soil, and it's on a slope. The brakes are compromised, and he's under there trying to figure out what's wrong. And he doesn't realize the severity of the situation that he's in, because if the truck rolled 6 inches, there would have been no way he could have got out from underneath the tires. So that is a perfect example of what I would call a high value near miss. So when you capture it, then you can say, look, this happened. You share that within your organization. You say, look, I went out and I stopped work and I intervened. I told the guy, get out from underneath the truck. When I started talking to him, I found out he was brand new to trucking. He didn't really have a lot of experience. When you talk about those kinds of things within your organization, depending on, how big of a company you are, you might start to see trends. Like another superintendent or foreman says, you know what? I had the same thing happen with the truck driver. And then another guy says the same thing. And then you start to realize, hey, there's some common findings here. Maybe if we would have been spotting the truck, or we would have had a truck route or some cones and delineators set up so that, maybe none of this would have happened. But it gives you an opportunity to look internally at what controls you can put in place. And earlier I said, in safety, all we're trying to do is prevent loss of control, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it gives you an opportunity to put controls in place, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot of things that are happening that nobody talks about. They go home and they might tell their wife, the craziest thing happened today. I saw this truck driver. He was standing up in the back of his truck, had a full load of soil, and he's up there with a shovel trying to move soil around, because he wanted to try and redistribute the load. And the job site rules are the truck drivers have to stay in the truck because it's contaminated soil. And he's up in the back digging around up there. So, you start to you have these discussions, and it could be powerful within your company. And sometimes, most of the time, the fixes are easy too. So a lot of it's not complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way to end the show right there, is on that note of just pay attention to what's going on out there and communicate about it. So Terry, if any of the construction champions out there wanted to get a hold of you, wanted to follow you, or learn more about what you do, how would they go about that?
Okay, well, my company's called Yellowknife Consulting Services, and our website is www.yellowknifesafety.com. And they could literally just go on the website, and there's a way to submit, if you want to if you need to call, a call, or you want to talk about something. But there's some tools and things that we offer. We offer training. We have different program documents. So like if a lot of times companies need, like, let's say you need a confined space program, or you need a silica exposure control program, things like that. A lot of the documentation, we already have it if you need it. So it doesn't make sense to try and go out and write it all. If you need it, we have it. We'll just, and it's not super expensive. It's just, your time is probably more valuable spent, doing construction work. But we have a lot of the documents and things that you might need, and other things. So yeah, we have a lot of stuff there. So tap into it.
Awesome. We'll have that on the show notes for everybody. Terry, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today.
Right. Thank you so much, Ron, and I really appreciate the opportunity. So you guys take care, and hopefully we'll hear from you again sometime.
Thank you. All right, construction champions, a great conversation about safety and the impacts that it can have on your business and your employees. A lot of times we think about safety in a way of, oh, everybody understands that it's all good. They've been doing this for 20 years. They're just out there doing the job. And we don't realize what the implications can be of one incident, or a workman's comp claim, or what it does to your liability insurance, or what it just does to your employees when it's a free-for-all and there is no mindset around safety. It's something that we have to address, because job sites are a hazard. Pretty much everything we do is a hazard. So get out there, teach, train, develop. Don't be afraid of safety. I know it's not sexy, but it's something we do have to address, especially as business owners within the construction space. It is something that has to be addressed, if not daily, weekly, with your guys. So, construction champions, get out there, check out constructionchampionspodcast.com. Look at all partners and sponsors that help make this show possible, and go on Facebook, join our construction champions group, mastermind group. Something it's really confusing. It's Construction Champions Mastermind Group, where we're helping connect our guests and our listeners all in one place, and we're creating an environment where we can move the construction industry forward. So until next time, go be the champion you were meant to be. Hey, construction champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum here, and I want to talk to you about how you can automate all of your marketing. We've had so many people on here talk about getting the systems in place. Well, we have partnered with Build 12 and Construction Champions podcast. Les O'Hara, the founder, what really excites me is his 30 years in the industry. And now he's built a system to be able to nurture your leads and continue to utilize that. I personally use the system myself. Build 12 is absolutely amazing. There's a lot of value in there, and it's a way to start getting away from Angie's List and all of that kind of stuff, and start actually creating your own leads every day and have a system for them. So go on our website, check out the show notes, go check out Build 12 and what it can do for the front end of your business today. It's absolutely amazing. I highly recommend going and meeting with Les and his son, Devin, and talking to him about what they built for their own business, so the rest of the industry can take benefit from that. Here on Construction Champions, we're all about helping each other out. And what is better than contractors helping contractors? I say nothing. So let's go take this to the next level. Go check out Build 12. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Les or his son, Devin. We're here to help. We want to continue to grow the industry.